Why business owners can't sleep at night. If you're a business owner, there are three specific things probably keeping you up at night right now. It's not the economy in general, not vague anxiety, three specific things. And I'm going to name every one of them because the data backs it up. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's driving each one and what the numbers say actually fixes them. If you appreciate me making this type of content, let me know by gently tapping that like button and consider subscribing and sharing this with someone who needs to hear it. Let's get into it. My name is James Miller. We grew EAR Specialty Composites from $10 million to $43 million in revenue and grew gross margins from 12% to 55%, resulting in an acquisition by a Fortune 100 company for $123 million. That was a team effort, and I was lucky enough to help drive it. Every one of the three things I'm about to cover, I've lived through myself before I ever had the language for it. The stat. There's a survey out from Gallagher, a business insurance and consulting firm, that polled 1,000 US business owners recently, and it found something worth sitting with. 76% of them said worries about their business are more likely to keep them up at night than personal matters, more than family. So if you've ever felt guilty about how much space this takes up in your head, you're not the exception. You're the majority. Here's what's actually driving that number. Fear one, cash flow timing. Fear number one is cash flow timing, not how much money you're making, whether it shows up in time to pay what's due. Blue Vine surveyed over 750 small business owners earlier this year, and 41% said their top stressor is bringing in money in time to pay the bills, not taxes, not payroll, timing. And 68% of owners lose at least one full night of sleep a month over exactly this. Here's why that happens even in businesses that are, on paper, doing fine. Revenue and cash are not the same thing. Sales cycle length inside the sales velocity equation is the time from that first conversation or that first opt in for a lead magnet all the way to purchase, whether that purchase is $1 or $50,000. But that's not actually the number that keeps most owners up. What keeps them up is what happens after the sale, the gap between when the order is placed, the invoice goes out, and the payment terms are finally met, anywhere from 7 to 75 days. You don't fix the anxiety around that gap by tracking it harder. You fix it by tracking the four numbers that come before it. When you know your sales velocity number, you already know how many deals are coming in and roughly what they're worth weeks before that payment clock even starts. The gap itself doesn't get smaller. Your confidence that the money is coming and roughly when gets bigger. That's what actually lets you sleep. I'll use Mark as an example. Picture a business owner I'll call Mark. On paper, his manufacturing business looked like a success. Revenue was growing, the order book was full, and his accountant kept reminding him the company was profitable. But every Friday, reality felt different. Suppliers needed to be paid and payroll was due. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of dollars sat in accounts receivable waiting for customers to pay 30, 60, even 90 days after being invoiced. The gap between money going out and money coming in created constant anxiety. Mark wasn't worried because the business was failing. He was worried because he couldn't see what was coming next. Every unexpected expense felt like a threat, and sleep became harder to find. The turning point came when he stopped managing the business through historical financial reports and started tracking four leading sales indicators: opportunities, win rate, average deal value, and sales cycle length. Together, they formed his sales velocity number, a forward looking measure of future revenue. Instead of hoping the next month would work out, Mark could now see what was building in his pipeline weeks before it reached his bank account. Every week the number moved, it told him something, whether cash flow was strengthening or where corrective action was needed. The business didn't change overnight, but his ability to predict it did, because the tracking itself became the feedback loop. And with predictability came something far more valuable than revenue: peace of mind. Fear 2, customer flow. Fear number 2 is where the next customer is even coming from. SoFi ran a state of small business survey this year with 515 owners, and more than a quarter of them, 26%, said finding new customers is the specific thing keeping them up at night. Almost another quarter said just keeping their offer relevant is right behind it. This is a raw math problem before it's anything else. In the sales velocity equation, this is the opportunities variable, the number of real chances you have to close a deal in a given period. If that number swings wildly month to month, so does everything downstream of it: your win rate, your revenue, and your mood. Most business owners I talk to have never actually counted their opportunities. They just feel the drought when it hits. Picture another business owner who, for years, rode the classic feast or famine cycle. One month the phones were ringing, proposals were going out, and cash was flowing. The next month was painfully quiet, leaving him wondering where the next sale would come from. Every slow week created sleepless nights because he had no visibility into what was actually driving revenue, only what had already happened. Everything changed when he began tracking his sales velocity number each week. Instead of obsessing over revenue, he measured opportunities, win rate, average deal value, and sales cycle length. Within weeks, the tracking gave him something revenue alone never had: feedback. He could see opportunities dropping before revenue declined, tell whether lower sales were caused by fewer deals or a lower close rate, and forecast future income with far greater confidence. Revenue became far more predictable, but the biggest change wasn't financial. It was psychological. He stopped guessing. He started managing the numbers that created sales and finally slept through the night. Quick break. If you want to know exactly where your own numbers stand on this right now, I built a free diagnostic that walks you through it in about 20 minutes. Link is in the description and the pinned comment below. go.sologrowth-ai.com/diagnostic. All right, back to it. Fear number 3, forecast trust. Fear number 3 is the one that surprised me most when I started digging into the research. It's not just having deals in the pipeline. It's not trusting the pipeline you already have. One industry analysis found that fewer than 25% of sales organizations hit forecast accuracy within 10% of their actual revenue. And research cited by Gartner found only about 45% of sales leaders are confident their own forecast is even accurate. Read that again. Less than half the people whose job is forecasting revenue actually trust their own forecast. That's not a them problem. If you've ever looked at your own pipeline and had no idea whether that number was real, you're in good company, and it's not a confidence problem. It's a win rate and average deal value problem, the last two variables in the equation. A pipeline full of hope isn't the same as a pipeline full of qualified deals. Picture a third business, one where the pipeline looked healthy on paper, more than $2 million in potential business. But the owner knew something was wrong. Forecasts were constantly missed, sales meetings turned into debates about which deals were real, and nobody trusted the pipeline number. Every month ended with the same question: where did all those opportunities go? That uncertainty created constant anxiety because there was no reliable way to predict cash flow or hiring decisions. Everything changed when the company began tracking the same four leading indicators inside the sales velocity number: opportunities, win rate, average deal value, and sales cycle length. More importantly, they established strict qualification criteria for every opportunity and let the weekly tracking tell them which deals were actually real. Overnight, the pipeline actually became smaller, but far more accurate. Weak deals disappeared, genuine buying intent became obvious, and the forecast held steady week to week. Confidence replaced anxiety, not because the anxiety went away, but because the feedback from tracking explained why revenue was increasing or slowing, allowing proactive decisions instead of last-minute surprises. The good news is all three of these fears are measurable, and once they're measurable, they're fixable. So here's how they connect: cash timing, customer flow, and forecast trust feel like three separate problems, but they all trace back to the same four leading indicators: opportunities, win rate, average deal value, and sales cycle length. Multiply the first three together, divide by the fourth, and the single number is your sales velocity number. It tells you how much revenue is actually coming and roughly when, which is exactly the confidence that quiets all three fears at once. How to start tracking. Here's how to actually start. You don't need software for this. You need one spreadsheet and 15 minutes on the same day every week. Down one side, write the four numbers: opportunities, win rate, average deal value, and sales cycle length. Opportunities is every real conversation you had with someone who could actually buy, not everyone who filled out a form. Win rate is how many of those conversations turned into a closed deal. Average deal value is exactly what it sounds like. Sales cycle length is the number of days from that first real conversation to signature. Write down all four numbers and do the math to get your sales velocity number every single week, and even the weeks that feel slow. Especially the weeks that feel slow, because that's exactly when the number tells you something that your gut can't. After about 6 weeks of doing this, a pattern shows up. You'll be able to see which of the four numbers is actually moving and which one has been stuck the whole time without you noticing. That's the variable to fix first, not all four at once. Only the one that's actually broken. When you're not tracking it, all three fears live in your gut instead of on a page, and your gut feelings don't sleep well. When you are tracking it, you can point to the exact variable that's actually broken instead of guessing and losing sleep over all three at once. Tracking your sales velocity number is the first move, but a number on a spreadsheet doesn't fix a broken sales and marketing engine by itself. That's what the training inside Sales Velocity Advantage is built to do across 6 modules: positioning, offer, demand, convert, scale, and control. Work through those, and you're not just watching the number anymore. You're building a sales engine that's repeatable, predictable, profitable, and then scalable with AI trained humans instead of your own hours. That's what actually breaks the cycle these three fears keep you stuck in. And once that engine is built and running on its own, the worry changes shape entirely. You're no longer wondering whether the money's coming. You're focused on how much bigger this can get, which is exactly where voice equity and whale hunting advantage pick up, building the authority and account hunting system that takes a stable business and grows it past the ceiling that you've been stuck under. And if you want to go deeper right now, I've already broken down other pieces of this equation elsewhere in this series. You can check those out by clicking right here.